Here's a brand new Omni-Fi original. When the universe gives you a 9 in a million chance, humans don't calculate the odds, they rewrite the equation.
Space is never truly silent. Even in the emptiest reaches, there's the hum of engines, the crackle of comms, the distant song of stars. But in the bridge of the ISB Indomitable, silence had fallen like a physical weight. Ahead, the veil shimmered like heat haze across the viewport, a 20-light-year anomaly where physics bent, twisted, and occasionally broke. Inside it lay the only known cure for the chorus plague, currently ravaging frontier colonies. And inside it, if any of the 3 expeditions sent by different species had survived, lay answers. The view screen showed 3 icons: Vex Carry Precision Ship, sci-fi Bioweaver Vessel, and the Indomitable, all converging on the veil's edge. Each had calculated the odds. Each had concluded the mission was suicide. Only one ship was preparing to enter. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the command chair, her back straight, her gaze fixed on the veil. At her tactical station, XA-7 processed data streams that would have made lesser processors melt. Probability of successful navigation, 3.77 stated, his voice a calm monotone that couldn't quite hide the faintest edge of concern. Probability of surviving the cure extraction, 12.1. Collective survival probability for all known expeditions, 0.04. Vasquez didn't turn. Her fingers traced the edge of her console, a habit when she was thinking. Those are the odds if we play by the rules. We won't be playing by the rules. Behind her, Chief Engineer Mira Okafor snorted. Rules are what you write on paper when you have time to think. Out here, we make up the rules as we go. Vasquez finally glanced back, a wry smile touching her lips. Exactly. Plot course through the instability. We're going in. The comms console chirped, and Ambassador Morse's face appeared, framed by the sterile background of Conclave Station. His expression was the usual mix of exasperation and respect he reserved for Vasquez. Captain. The Conclave has reviewed the mission parameters. All species have withdrawn. The Vex Carry Ascendancy calculates a 96.3 probability of catastrophic failure. The sci-fi Bioweave has declared the mission biologically untenable. Even the Orani, who rarely comment on such matters, have noted that rushing into the unknown is unwise. Vasquez leaned forward, her eyes meeting Morse's through the screen. Ambassador, tell the Conclave that we're not calculating. We're attempting. Big difference. Morse sighed, the sound almost visible through the comm. Captain, your definition of attempting could charitably be described as suicidal adventurism. Vasquez's smile widened. And that's why we'll succeed where their caution fails. Captain, I must register my protest, 7 stated, turning from his station. His optical sensors glowed amber in the bridge's dim lighting. My calculations indicate that this course of action violates every principle of risk assessment. Even accounting for human adaptability parameters, the odds remain unfavorable. Vasquez walked over to him, her steps purposeful. 7, I've read your report. You've accounted for every variable except one. She tapped the side of her head. Humanity. The Forge-born tilted his head, a gesture he'd adopted from humans. Please elaborate. My analysis already includes human unpredictability matrices. Vasquez's eyes softened. No, it doesn't. You've calculated what humans might do. You haven't calculated what they will do when they've got nothing left to lose. She straightened, her voice firm again. Plot the course through the most unstable region. We're going in now. As the Indomitable approached the veil, space began to warp around them. Stars stretched into long ribbons of light, then snapped back. The ship shuddered as gravity fluctuations tugged at its hull. Structural integrity at 87.7 reported, his voice uncharacteristically rapid. Deflector fields fluctuating unpredictably. I am unable to maintain a stable navigational solution. On the view screen, the Vex-carry vessel held position at the edge of the anomaly, its crystalline hull gleaming in the distorted light. The Sylphari ship had already retreated, its bioweave hull retracting into itself like a frightened organism. "They're waiting to see if we make it," Vasquez said, her eyes never leaving the viewport. "They'll come in after if we survive, claim the cure, and call it prudent foresight." She tapped her comm mirror. "How are the engines holding?" The chief engineer's voice crackled with static. "Holding together by sheer stubbornness, Captain. Which is appropriate, I suppose." Entering the Veil now, Seven announced as the Indomitable crossed the threshold. The ship lurched violently, throwing Vasquez against her console. Warning lights flashed across every screen. "Gravity plasmids destabilizing." Mira yelled. "I'm rerouting power, but we've got seconds." Vasquez gripped the armrests, her knuckles white. "Seven, navigation?" The Forgeborn's optical sensors flickered rapidly. Current trajectory projected to intersect with a spacetime fracture in 47 seconds. Probability of survival, 2.3. He paused. "However, I have detected an unusual energy signature within the anomaly. It appears to be artificial." Vasquez's eyes narrowed. "The cure?" "Unknown. The signature is inconsistent with any known technology." "It could be the cure. It could be a trap. It could be both." She smiled, a fierce, dangerous expression. "Perfect. Give me options." Seven projected 3 holographic paths before them. The first was the safest, curving around the most dangerous regions of the Veil. Probability of survival, 83. Probability of locating the cure, 14. The second path cut through a region of intense radiation. Survival, 41. Cure location, 67. The third path plunged directly toward the energy signature, passing through what Seven identified as a temporal eddy. Survival, 9, cure location, 91. Mira whistled softly. "Captain, option 3 is essentially suicide." Vasquez studied the paths, her mind racing. "Seven, what happens if we combine elements of all 3? The Forgeborn processed the request, his optical sensors blazing with computation. "That would be irrational. The paths are mathematically incompatible." "Exactly," Vasquez said, a spark in her eyes. "Rational beings follow the paths. We create a new one." She pointed to the temporal eddy. "We go there, but we don't take path 3. We take a hybrid. Your calculations can't account for that because it hasn't been done before." The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. "Hull breach in engineering." Mira yelled. "We've got 30 seconds before the core breaches." Vasquez didn't flinch. "Seven, execute the hybrid course now." The Forgeborn hesitated, his usual composure cracking. "Captain, this course has a 0.7 probability of success." "Seven, Vasquez said, her voice dropping to a rare intensity, "I've commanded this ship for 15 years. I've faced impossible odds before. And every time, the ships that calculated the odds never came back. The ships that rewrote the equation did." Seven's optical sensors dimmed, then brightened to a warm amber. "Understood. Executing hybrid course." The Indomitable twisted in ways no ship was designed to go, Vasquez's hands flying across her console, rerouting power, adjusting shields, compensating for forces that had no right to exist in normal space. Outside the viewport, reality itself seemed to protest. For a moment, there was only chaos. The ship screamed around them, lights flickered, and gravity seemed to lose all meaning. Vasquez felt herself pressed against her console, the weight of impossible choices bearing down on her. Then, as suddenly as it began, the violence stopped. They were in a pocket of relative calm. Before them floated a structure that defied description, half organic, half technological, pulsing with soft light. "What is that?" Mira breathed, staring at the view screen. Seven's voice was filled with something that might have been awe. I do not know. It appears to be both alive and machine. And it is exactly where my calculations said the cure would be. Vasquez slowly stood, wiping sweat from her brow. The Vex Carry would have calculated this as impossible. The sci-fi would have deemed it biologically untenable. The assembly would have flagged it as inefficient. She smiled. But here it is. Captain, I am detecting life signs within the structure, Seven reported, his voice tinged with wonder. Not one life form. Thousands. But there, dormant. Waiting. Vasquez approached the view screen, her reflection superimposed over the mysterious structure. The cure isn't just here. It's alive. She turned to her crew. Mira, prepare to interface with their systems. Gently. This thing could be more sensitive than a newborn or an e-poet. Mira nodded, already at her console. 7. Scan for anything that might help us communicate. Not with words, but with intent. The Forgeborn tilted his head. Intents are not data points, Captain. No, Vasquez said, her eyes distant. But maybe they are. As they worked, a thought occurred to her, one that might explain why this place existed in the impossible heart of the Veil. 7. What's the probability of a structure like this forming here? The AI processed the question, then answered, effectively 0. Unless it was placed here deliberately. Vasquez's eyes narrowed. By who? The answer came not from 7, but from the structure itself. As Mira made contact, soft light flowed from the structure toward the Indomitable, wrapping around the ship like a lover's embrace. Within the light, images flickered, scenes from across the frontier, showing the spread of the Chorus Plague, the suffering of colonists, the desperation of medical crews. Then came the message, not in words, but in pure understanding, we were placed here. By those who came before. To test those who would come after. Vasquez felt a chill run down her spine. The remnant. Seven's voice was tense. It's always the remnant. The message continued, each species approaches us differently. The Vex Carry calculate. The sci-fi observe. The Kren challenge. The assembly analyze. The Orani contemplate. The Forgeborn interface. Humans attempt. The light pulsed, brighter this time. And only humans have ever succeeded. As the message settled in their minds, the structure before them changed. Sections opened like petals, revealing not medicine or technology, but something more, a pattern of light that pulsed with life. It's not a cure, Seven realized, his optical sensors wide. It's a template. A biological pattern that can be adapted to any species. Vasquez understood immediately. The remnant didn't give them the cure. It gave them the possibility of one. She turned to her crew, her face alight with something that wasn't quite triumph, but something deeper. The Vex Carry would have calculated this as insufficient data. The sci-fi would have deemed it biologically incomplete. The assembly would have flagged it as inefficient. She smiled. But it's exactly what we need. As they began the delicate process of extracting the pattern, Vasquez caught Seven's eye. The Forgeborn was staring at her, his optical sensors showing an emotion she rarely saw in him, reverence. Captain, he said softly, I have been processing this mission. According to my calculations, your actions increased our survival probability by a factor of 13.7. Vasquez raised an eyebrow. And? The probability that any other species would have done the same is, effectively 0. She clapped him on the shoulder. Welcome to the club, 7. The universe doesn't make sense to rational beings. It's our job to make sense of the nonsense.